During this lesson, we are going to focus on creating a video lesson for synchronous or asynchronous learning. Synchronous meaning that we are live and your students are watching you and listening. Asynchronous meaning that they are going to be listening to this at a time when you will not be actively involved in it. So we will focus on what makes an effective lesson, the different senses that are used, translating your face-to-face lesson to a digital lesson, creating both those types of lessons, and as well as giving you options for you to use. So let's focus on what makes a great lesson. When you are in your room and you are teaching and you are engaged, what is happening in your room that is making that lesson so effective? Is it the conversations that you're having? Is it the tone that you use? Do you start talking quietly and then when a big moment comes, you raise your voice? Are you animated? Is your body involved when you speak? Do you move around the room? Do you have different objects that add to your lesson? If you're a history teacher, do you have maps that you refer to? If you're a STEM teacher, do you have robotic items in there? If you're a math teacher, are you pulling out calculators and rulers and different types of measurement? What is it in your lesson that makes your lesson so amazing? So those of us that have been, so you know that teaching involves planning. So to make a lesson effective, you need to have an objective. What is the reason for the lesson? What is the goal of the lesson? Prior to presenting it, you're going to plan the resources and you're going to have them laid out. If you're doing a science experiment, you're going to make sure that all of the tools that you need are all ready to go and ready to be shared out with the students in the room. As you deliver your content, you are going to have some kind of presentation that is going to be part of it. If you're in the upper grades, it might be a digital presentation that you share on the wall while your students are listening. If you have younger students, maybe it's different books, maybe it's chart paper, maybe it's some kind of manipulative, but you're doing something so that the lesson is being taught through multiple senses. You're allowing time for the students to practice. Maybe if you think of an I do, you do, we do kind of teaching mentality, then you might have a lesson that you teach and say, all right, now that I've shared it, I want you to turn to your shoulder partner and discuss something. I want you to try this math problem I just wrote on the board. I want you to look at your paper and find the noun. You're allowing time for students to practice the information that you have just shared with them, and then you will evaluate of some way for understanding. That's what basically happens in your face-to-face lessons. But we have to figure out how to take that and turn it into a digital form. And what is the one most important piece of any lesson is the engagement. As long as your students are engaged in what you are doing and what is going on, they are going to grasp the concept. Now, with many of our students and the way that we all teach, you will find, I'm sure that you found, that the more lively and passionate you are with your content, the more the students are engaged. The more time that you allow for conversation, the more the students are engaged. As you prepare your video lessons, you've got to figure out, how am I going to engage my students? It is very simple for a student to sit back and to listen for 45 minutes. But are they listening to you? Are they listening to the concepts? Are they listening to what's being shared? What can be done so that during that lesson, they are actively involved? So let's talk about what senses are used during a face-to-face classroom lesson. So the first thing that's going to happen is I am going to see what's going to happen. If I'm a student in your class, I am watching the way that you're teaching. I'm watching your body. Are you sitting behind a desk, or are you standing up? Are your arms going? Are you demonstrating in PE? Are you demonstrating the way that you would jump or skip or hop? I'm going to look at the videos that you are going to post for me that is going to give me examples to support whatever the content is. I might come over and observe the experiment that's being shared. I might look at something, and maybe if I see that something's broken, we have to figure out how to make that work. If I'm wanting to figure out how an explorer went across the country. I've got to look at the map and I have to see what's going on. So I'm using my eyes for a large majority of this lesson. I am listening to the tone of your voice. I am listening to how you were talking. If you're reading me a story, are you using different voices or are you monotone when you read? I am listening with the excitement that you're sharing. I am listening to your questioning voice that you have when you want me to think about something. Maybe your voice takes breaks. Maybe your sentences take breaks. Maybe your words and your question words finish on a higher note. You're trying to figure out what it is. If I'm in music class and you're playing music for me, I'm listening to the songs that you're playing for me, and then I'm listening to what words you are sharing so I could figure out what it is that's going on. I am looking at the way, I'm listening to the way that other students are interacting with others, because all we know that social interaction is a huge part in our classrooms. Now, these senses that are on the screen, smell, taste, and touch, these are things that occur easily in your face-to-face classroom. But is there a way that you can make them occur in a digital classroom? Is there something I can do? And I don't know, something in my home. Maybe there's something I could touch in my home. What can I do to bring those senses in so that we're involved? Maybe during my lesson, especially if I'm teaching younger grades and we're talking about soil, maybe I could have some kind of soil in there. And I could ask my students to bring a small bowl of soil, and during the class, I can ask you to touch it. What does it feel like? So now your students' hands are in the dirt and they're explaining to you what is it that they're touching. Again, we want our students to be engaged, whether we're face-to-face or whether we're in different locations. The key to you creating an effective video is going to be engaging your students. What can you do to engage? So now take a second and I want you to think, when you have delivered that amazing lesson, that lesson, when that thing is over, you are just sky high. You want to tell the whole world about how amazing that lesson was, because not only was it great when you were planning it, but when it was delivered and the engagement that the students had was beyond what you expected. Make a list on a piece of paper of what happened during that class that made that class so amazing. What was it? And then what you need to do with that list is figure out, how am I going to grasp that same excitement and deliver it through a screen? What am I going to do? So we have some options that you can do to create different videos and different ways to engage. Some of these are paid and some of these are free. I would imagine you contact your technical people within your school or your county to find out which ones that you have, which ones are approved. And I do know that there's also going to be a whole lot of sales coming up. So that might be something to think about in looking into purchase, maybe writing some grants. PTA money is usually available. So some engaging video tools. So on the left side, I just listed a few of them. Loom is a fabulous free tool that many districts have actually used during the last year. WeVideo is a paid site. Screencastify was free, and I believe it's relatively inexpensive now. But what's great about the tools that are on the left is that you will be able to create your video and then you can edit it. So if you were recording a video, as you were recording it and you make mistakes, you can always edit those out before it's time to share it out with your students. Now the items on the right side, Poll Everywhere, Mentimeter, and Ask the Room, those are polling sites that you can add within your lessons. So if you are doing a live video lesson, you can stop it and go ahead and say, hey, go ahead over to this link. Maybe you can post the URL that is directly related to one of those 3 items that you created before you created your lesson. Have the students click on it, take a quick poll. Hey, tell me what this word means, or do something that requires them to get back engaged with it, because that is what the students are really wanting to worry about, or really get involved with. Now, for the rest of this week, this is what we're going to be focusing on, looking at different video tools, different ways to deliver your information.